name is Joanne Sushot. I'm here from Sydney Angels. I sit on the Sydney Angels committee. So I'll just give you a little bit of a brief overview on sort of angel funders in general and what we do at Sydney Angels. In terms of angel funding, sort of that sector of the market, we're really looking at providing sort of that early stage or even sort of up to seed or pre-seed funding. Angels are different to VCs in that we invest our own money and we invest this directly into startups. And there are various types of angels. So it can be individuals investing, you can have a syndicate of investors, or you can have a group like Sydney Angels. And each investor has a varied background and they can bring strategic industry knowledge to help startups. Often angels do take an active role, either as a board director or as an advisory board member. Bit of insight into some work I've done trying to look at success rates of startups that are applying for angel funding. I had a bit of a dig back through Sydney Angels records, and we tracked just over 1,300 companies that applied for funding between 2014 and 2021. And close to 28% of applicants actually went on to raise some sort of funding, whether it be equity or grants from either Sydney Angels, and obviously mainly from other investors. So that's sort of a reasonable indicator, I think, of the health overall of the angel funding market in Australia. Sydney Angels was established around about in 2008, and we're a little bit different to other angel groups in that it's a really structured, team-based investment process. And so in that time, we've invested over $41 million into 91 early stage startups, and these have attracted 19 times more funding. So Sydney Angels is agnostic about industry. We'll consider any business model, any industry, but we do require you to have at least an MVP or some sort of working prototype. You don't have to have revenue. You can be pre-revenue or early revenue. And we tend to invest in startups that can at least demonstrate their product or their technology and be able to show or prove that there is some sort of demand. Most of our startups are typically looking to raise their first professional round somewhere between 600,000 to 800,000, although they're, at times it can be less, sometimes, and it can also be more, just depending on the stage of the company when they apply for funding. And so Sydney Angels usually on average puts around 200,000 to 300,000 into a deal. And we also co-investors will provide the rest. That might be other angel groups that are part of our network that we'll reach out to. It'll be our sidecar fund. So we have a fund that co-invests with Sydney Angels. The latest fund is just about to raise. It's currently raising. So they'll be investing with Sydney Angels going forward. It can go over $1 million depending on the stage of the startup. And obviously then you'd need to find there's a bit more of a gap in terms of other co-investors having to fill that. So it's usually for price rounds for ordinary shares, although we do consider safe notes. Really, the valuation just depends on the stage of the startup. So historically, below 4 million, but it has trended upwards, and it's very much a negotiation between the startup and investors. And we have sort of around about 100 members, lots of different types of backgrounds, extensive knowledge and experience across diverse industries. So if you apply for Sydney Angels, there's a 4-stage process. There's an initial deal screening by the committee. So you put in a 2-page summary, which we will then use to just evaluate. And so we don't necessarily look at the pitch deck at this stage. It's really just the summary. 6 cycles a year, about 40 to 60 applications per cycle. And then 6 of these companies are then selected for a short pitch and Q&A, and you're evaluated by a panel of members. The one thing we like doing at Sydney Angels is ensuring that all of our companies get feedback. So if you make it through to a pitching stage, even if you don't make it onto the next stage, you still get feedback on your pitch to Sydney Angels. So as part of the criteria for evaluating the companies, every panel member has to put a few points down for feedback for each of the companies. And so you get you'll get 20 different views. Sometimes there'll be overlap, but you'll get 20 different views on your pitch. And then 3 of these companies then are selected for a longer pitch to members, and then syndicates are formed of interested members who will then undertake DD in collaboration with the company. So we work a lot with the startups. It's a collaborative process. You get asked lots of questions, and you help provide information around that whole DD process. Apply online anytime at Sydney Angels. It really is this concise 2-page summary, so it is important to try and get all your points across. And the other thing I must mention, of course, is that there are no fees at any part of the process in applying for funding. So when you're looking for funding, you need to keep this in mind. So my tips in seeking angel funding for any startup is you need to do your homework. You need to know who your potential investors are. Are they going to be a good fit for your startup? You can have a look at what sort of companies have they invested in before, what is their interest, what are their background, what are typical amounts of dollars invested going to offer your startup. Are they going to just be passive, or will they be active with advice, with networks, etc.? So, for example, if you're really keen to expand into international markets, try to find an angel or an investor that's going to have the contacts to help you do so. Understand their process. What are their criteria? How do they screen deals? And remember, whenever you're pitching, your founding team at this stage is really important. You really need to work hard to credentialize yourselves and sell why you are the best, you and your team are the best people to run with both your idea and or your business. So if you're interested, when you're sort of ready, and you're thinking of funding, come have a look at what Sydney Angels has to offer.